In the palace of Dharmata often no less, a sense of Buddhas of 3 times, past, present, and future. You who directly introduced this ordinary mind as the true Dharmakaya, to your feet I pay homage. May my mind be guided on the path of the Dharma. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the chance. Well, I'd like to start by thanking the Science for Monks and the Tibetan Library of Tibetan Works and Archives for organizing such a wonderful, timely conference in a very beautiful setting here. So thank you very much for that. And well, it's also thanks to Bryce who brought me here actually. Otherwise, probably I would not be talking right now. So thank you, Bryce. Well, I'm supposed to be talking about emotion as path to transformation. But given the environment here, I'm sure that I don't really have much to say because, you know, we have so many scholars who comes with, you know, experiences and all those things. And maybe I could just actually say that emotions as path of transformation and maybe stop right here and say, now the floor is yours. But maybe that's not fair, I guess. So I'll try to sort of see if I make sense from here on. Well, I have neither researched and nor am I knowledgeable on the topic that I'll be discussing, but yes, sometimes there's a saying where we say, Rankil in a doyamu sechero, if it's the task that you're entrusted, even if it's a rock, solid hard rock, you still have to chew on it. So maybe that's what I'm going to be doing here. And then it's also like, you know, on this topic, rather than having solutions or answers to the topic that emotion as path to transformation, seriously, I'm looking for answers actually, especially from the very knowledgeable panels, and then of course the monastic graduates, you know, and then some genuine concerns from the young minds here, because that matters a lot. But I would like to pose some questions that, and then I'll try to see if I can sort of, you know, maneuver around it. Like questions like, you know, very basic. I'm sure that all of you, especially the younger ones, would just come up and say, hey, that's the same question that we have been asking for a long time. So I have been just saying, why are there all the problems in this world we live in? I think this is a very fair question, right? Okay, at least I get some rights. But, well, now that we see the majority of the participants here that I would believe are Buddhist, and we take things for granted sometimes, to this question as to why there's so much trouble in this world that we live in. It's more or less like, you know, it's karma, lerwa, no? Makes things very easy, but doesn't solve the problem. So that's when we keep continuing on, and that's where we are because of what our thought process or our technique of dealing with it, I guess. Then I thought, maybe it's time to give this poor karma some break, step back a little bit, and say, hey, is there something that we might be able to do to help it, you know? To make our situation better rather than just sort of saying, blaming the poor old karma for, you know, ages. I thought, why not? That's what I said, right? Would you say that? Maybe. Well, I'd like to share how we may use our emotions as path by regulating and transforming them to our advantage. To our advantage. I think that I think is good. And hopefully we'll be able to do it today, if not maybe sometime in our life, right? And now here, I'd like to quote Shantadeva, very loosely though, because my translation is not that good anyway. So I'd like to quote by saying that, no, there's nothing that we cannot familiarize ourselves with through the technique of contemplation. I think I got the translation more or less right. So from this, we can just say that we are our own making. We are our own making. Nobody made us who we are today. Physically, well, we can just blame it somewhere else, but mentally, of what we are doing, of the age that we are in right now, I'm plus 50, so who I am up until now and right now is what I have been contemplating for the last half a century. So maybe I don't make sense, but that's okay. It also means that we can choose to be either happy or miserable. By contemplating on it, we can either choose to be happy or we can choose to be miserable. Unfortunately, we seem to be choosing the latter, and I think many of our panelists have, and then the Geshe-las have touched upon where we tend to go and where the easy path is. When it comes to some virtues and positive actions, we seem to need to put effort, whereas to do something bad or to accumulate something negative, it's almost like spontaneous for us, right? And if we only take advices from Shantideva seriously, because again I'm saying here seriously because it's like those of us who have been in the monasteries, who have had the teaching, had access to the teachings of Shantideva himself, still do not practice it. That is the sad part, I think. For those of the young minds, or for those who didn't have access to this kind of a teaching at all, to the advices such as Shantideva's, I don't think we can blame them. It's just human nature sometimes to err, that's what we say. But then, for those of us who have come in contact with this, for those of us who have had the opportunity to practice, ponder upon it, and not being able to do that, that I think is a shame. So maybe we can be more mindful on this. And so we have, I think, because we chose to, because we contemplate on, it's only natural that when we are sort of not putting much of an effort, it's always that we are sleeping lower into more aspirations and into more negative environment. And after a while, what happens is the whole environment becomes unpleasant. And that's when we say that the environment itself, the environment that we live in, arises or becomes your very enemy. So you're engulfed in it, right? And what brought us here, I thought, is that we used our negative emotions to bring us there in the very situation that we live in. I'm talking more on the negative side, I guess, because that's maybe more true. And probably if we do recognize that we're living in this world where we don't really like, actually, right? Maybe we would just be able to say, hey, this is not really where we want to be. Maybe we can just work out and step ahead and see if there's a better place with a better view, right? So that's one thing. Well, to do that, I think what we need is to maneuver our emotions on a positive path and slowly, carefully, but surely transform our emotions to our advantage. That's the very first line I said, I think. In doing so, this horrible environment that we perceive would become a very comfortable place. Comfortable place because we made it uncomfortable by contemplating in it. We can do the same by contemplating in it to make this place a better place. Here again, what I'm trying to stress is trying to stick to the topic by saying that we can maneuver the emotions, regulate, transform, and put it on the path of a positive result. By saying this, I don't mean to say that that I'm not saying that the environment will change physically. That there will be no garbage around us by saying that there's no garbage. Just if you contemplate on having no garbage, you just walk down a few meters down, on the street, and you'll have plenty of those. That's what I don't mean to say. Neither am I saying that, having the mountains around here, that the snow one day will become just something warm and cozy, fuzzy, nice. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm trying to say is, let's try to regulate our emotions and become Milarepas. Right? In the sense, Milarepa in the sense, because we're so close to the mountain, because we can relate to snow. I think the best example we can just put up here is Milarepa, right? And he's probably one of the best examples of someone who managed to pull his acts together. I'm just giving one example. It's useless and even harmful to keep pondering upon our negative emotions at all times. That's clear, right? That's clear, but yet we drift into it. But rather, one must develop our feelings through practice to face however big a suffering is. It's obvious that we are wasting time if we're trying to make a crow into a dove. That's what I thought might be interesting and more, sort of picture scale to say that trying to make crow into a dove probably means that we're wasting our time if we cannot change the environment. But yet, if you don't, something that we cannot undo or sort of change, and yet if we put so much time and effort in there, we are not accomplishing anything. We're a loser there. So instead, but if that's the thing that we can indeed transform, if you can make the crow into this pretty nice dove, then we might not as well have to put in so much energy. Either way, we will be wasting more energy. That's what I'm trying to say. If we have contemplated on positive emotions, even when we feel, my tongue is just giving away, that's all. Now, as I said, contemplating is the one that gives you or makes who we are. So if you have contemplated on positive emotions, like we did with the negative emotions, even when we face huge sufferings, it'll just be a piece of cake. Means it's going to we can just make it better, right? If we have given in ourselves to negative emotions, we cannot even bear any suffering at all. And at this, being a Buddhist helps a lot. It could be true with other faiths, but then, you don't hit the wall. You don't hit the wall when you come to an end, that there is something to look beyond before, and then there's something to look beyond what we are. So we don't hit the wall. And I don't know if it's, I don't know how true it's here, but in a small country like Bhutan, oftentimes, especially the youngsters, without not having much of a knowledge of the past, future and present, linking together, it's easy to say, read in a newspaper saying that, somewhere else in an X country, somebody just committed suicide. If we love ourselves enough, if we love our parents enough, if we care for our friends enough, for the community, that thing called suicide is not even something that you want to even think of, let alone enact it. So I'm taking advantage of the very young audience here because it could be, maybe I'm talking to a different kind of a mindset, but from where I'm coming, I thought that was crucial and it might be helpful at some point. if accumulation of virtue brings about peace and happiness, something that we yearn for, we then don't have much of a choice. We want peace. We want happiness. We want to be calm. And if virtue or contemplation on that is the cause, we do not have much of a choice but to engage ourselves into that practice, right? So if you want it, just step ahead. If you need to sit or roll, just practice it in any position you find yourself comfortable with, I think. After all, emotion is the positive or negative display of our mind's activities. I don't know if you agree on that, but I believe any emotion, any form of emotion, be it positive or negative, is the display of our mind. So, it's like a reflection of our mind's display. We must also realize that we should be taken into consideration then to make a better place for all. Maybe here I'm stressing we, I, and all. So if you just say that, probably it becomes, we create a little bit more surrounding, little more vast. The vastness around us becomes a little more greater, I guess. So I'm just trying to stress on that. Hence, it's also indispensable not to care for others more, if not, just at least equal. And we have our panelists and scholars have touched on that many times. So it's just sort of ascertaining that that's very important. Now, I promise that I'll not be very long. So what I'm going to say here is, to be able to regulate emotions, it's necessary to understand oneself. Young minds, mark it, all right? It's necessary to understand oneself. And you can do that through. And you are very fortunate here to have His Holiness himself in this Western area and all the scholars, available to you anytime you want to. So, to be able to regulate emotion, it's necessary to understand oneself. It's a process of dialogue between me and you to begin with, but it soon becomes a dialogue within yourself, all right? It soon becomes a dialogue between yourself. That's when you need to take time off for yourself, have a proper, thorough dialogue within yourself, with yourself, to reach out to who you are and who you want to be. Maybe you can do it by looking in a mirror, if that helps. Now, as beings, we have feelings of suffering and happiness, which I think is emotion. And the wonderful thing is, as human being, we have the intellectual capability of dealing and maneuvering that emotion to our advantage. So, is it 10 minutes already? No. I'm just going to come to an end, and I'm just saying, all at the very end, may I wish and pray that we can maneuver our emotions to our advantage and become a good human being. Thank you.
네, telaya ngarang ingane chewa kare yosinarwa. 네, kare namkyundene toba kare yonte kidusina. 네, karseure 직 초바다 아니 지소 간제질에 차샤바이네. 네, 직 시유데 몽부시오지 예대발 라렌 칼연도 zambalат네 라렌 시라 메테예. 디 아니 당기 근데 genlagi sunjena tartutine kune thane geta 직 시주데 망바시에 대바 간실라 라렌 따르드 zambalат네 레고르 차우드 zambal다디 도셔 레스네 딘데 손스르와 다디 라렌 따르드 zambalат네 따다 아니 간스부 라렌 간나 칼마테베디 아니 규겐소 세나민도 내가 소데 아니 갈레토 여르신 데 컨디션 티지나
caution is that As you have mentioned in the presentation, for any level, from individual to organizational level, when we talk about what we should be doing, we all have the knowledge, but what we lack is the practical part. Even though we have the knowledge to achieve, or the path, we know the methods to achieve happiness, but we don't practice those methods, and we end up having less happiness. So why we don't practice? Why, even with the knowledge, why we don't do things that we should be doing?
Thank you. I did not expect a monastic to be asking me a question, because it's more than what I can explain or what I really know. But nonetheless, as I said, I'll have to deal with what I have. I would suggest we start from, I think it's more, we talk big about the whole beings. We talk about the world. We talk about the society. When we sit around and have a chat, or even gossip, what we hear is that we want, for example, I cannot, I'm sorry to say we, maybe I should just talk on, from myself, saying that I would like to see all of you to be perfect, very compassionate, kind, loving, generous, and all. But when it comes to me, I'll do what I want, and there lies the fault, I think. So instead of, I think we're talking about why we is important than I in the first panel. So I think it boils from the same thing by saying that change from here. Change yourself first before you expect somebody else to change. Can we do that? Thank you. Chirtang that tandangi da shuju dabuchila da ngegi dina ma kecheshe dila keche dabo da tende chinga soda sakbordo dela keba mangbu ne dila da keche das chi yomarte ina da rankal domo se dabo da jin shishu da dre dichedi tanda khongi suya dabuchila ina ngansugi daranshogi shibanashi kashe mangbu da chi tamshe mangbu da chi dila kharse gro pento je goya da kaki yongga ge mangbu sungyola sungyor te ina 다 나라부 차잖아. 배나 나라부 차잖아. 델 데데카 케차 로보 카셰치 단 케셰시 온디간라. 칼라게르스나. 지 디그멘동이 디그멘돌라나 오다 콧 데레시나 야보초 콜라 잠체 거치. 망보다 셰서 슈레 나랑 카르지기도 따온디갈라. 나다 나랑 카르지인도 데그로아 세라치도아. 디디 노트멘도 섬경이. 디사몬디간라. 다 당보디 치소디 야보치 교베나. 당보 소소네야 고소나 칸데도 세라치기. This is something.
네, 딩 긴라이 ngzu sangmolo da dina yungye sangmolo nangba yime ji medo ji ji iji chige soso ni da nangba yimba ina ani ngzu bina ji shungge nanglo ani ji nangba yimba ina ya nangbe chu nangla kangsung sangmolo iji chide kale gabu to bina je nido ji 긴라이 da ngzu shungge nanglo ji da ne da ngzu bibi jizo nang ji nangbe jizo nangla 낭비 추기 고도지로 this 시다 모두시 다지 모는 다지 고도시다 지단의 지용체는 신경나는 딘도지 다지 낭비 추는 승의 최상원로니 이제 제 가우스로 스칸 이제 랍산리트에 this 갈래 위해서도 네도지 니 고조 노르면나 딘도지 송송 아니 디톨라니 겔라기 겔유는 겔유는 지금 낭비 추 고도 빼라 안 탑lâm 그리 야시도지 시기나 다지 낭비 추 고도 빼라 고도 야구 유명해지.
So, in your presentation, you said that you expect that the majority of the audience here are Buddhist. And when we talk about Buddhists, even though they may consider themselves as Buddhists, but in Buddhist community, the understanding of real teachings of Buddha varies from almost none to experts. And many of the aspects that is mentioned in the Buddhist traditions may be very difficult to accept it by many of the youngsters. So if there's this kind of problem, or to some extent say there's a kind of lack of understanding among the Buddhist community about Buddhism. What could be the reasons, and what we should do to make it more kind of appealing to the youngsters?
Dorji, sorry. I personally feel, and I believe and have so much faith and devotion in the Buddhist philosophy. Very profound. The only part you need to, sort of get where you need to get. I have confidence in that. But then, what I see is a gap between generations. There's this orthodox way of saying, I have been told by one of my friends when I was in Bhutan, who is Western educated, and he said, we had a long conversation, almost arguing, and then at the end he said, I feel much better today. And he was saying, normally when I talk to the monastics, especially the elder ones, you reason out, and after a while, when it's not up to their expectation or something, the shutter goes down. That's it. It's our tradition. That's very unhealthy, I think. We need to be able to, I'm sure, I don't know, we're born Buddhist, but here, but I don't know if we're all Buddhist. To be a Buddhist requires certain, characteristics, I guess. But then, more than being a Buddhist, I think, or even being a Buddhist, I think we need to be more human, for that matter. Because Buddha taught what he taught, can we say that this wasn't there before that? No, the human values were always there, right? Human values are always there. So hence, I think it's the duty of the monastics, the teachers, the scholars, to break this profound package and make it more palatable. So that each one of us can understand and be proud of our profound sacred religion that's been taught 2,500 years back and still very much valid.
I just wanted to make a comment to the earlier and what you also said, that knowledge is there, the change, that self-transformation, how difficult it is, because that work has to be done by yourself. You cannot rely on anyone outside. No teacher, no consultant can do it. There's a very nice story about the owl and the grasshopper. So grasshopper once went to the owl and said, "You are such a wise owl. I feel so cold in winter. Tell me what to do. Tell me what to do." And the wise owl thought for a minute, and he said, "You should change yourself into a cricket. They don't freeze in winter." And he said, "Wonderful, wonderful. And now tell me how to do it." He said, "I am the consultant. I have given you the solution. Implementation is your problem." And this is the whole thing about the self-transformation. Implementation is always our problem.
Tanji, tanda tiwajigi was, ani hiya mangu shingi yores, ina langlen di ane kabu chigi yores, ya di jitna gishla ki dusiche, ane gilagi tanda len kyun sa sons, di gal nembesh kyab imbe na, ani chilo ni nezu mangu si nyaya yore, hiya yore din imbe na yang, girwa tanya di susu ngone tangu wama do, kirang gigen ki chaya yo mare, terang nasi kirang chobu ki chaya yo mares. 아니 데다 대화 요베 룸 지어레스 룸 카레스 아나님 데라 우버지다 아차사고 시기로만서 우버다 아차사고 요레스 아니 우버디 코 리버야고 요시기요레스 진짜 우버람 친체 아차사고에 갈라레스 라빈베나 꾸지스타 나 군가 시우 정거두스타 아니 디 장모드니 교배 그치도랑 가르치 구레스 세두삼발라 아니 우버에 갈라레스 라빈베나 키랑 아니 burgo gewal kheb yu dine do dinde ko ngol pa ani gurgures di chebi bena ani di kheb di kyapche ani kirang gunga thangi mares lawres o ani disha tablam dipe yabu dus ina ya ani nga acha sakbo imbo songza burgo ko ngol pa khandis gyurtub gures le zambala ani nga she singe de ma to ani khandis gyurnye de nga mares di kirang thapchi chesh layores chezan gwa khandis tangu bena su chewre ma to ani chilo ne ling mardas
kelala choice shuchoji ta tangi chana da chona ba ni stri cha de duro check date and the layer say you that you think on the layers. Tika the next get a shame is Zambala Carsor that delicate Tonson Mandoni Tondi. Sometimes layers is Zambala that's him you a percent of Chigna. Yeah, layers by you said Zambala Lelogo on the shoulder. Then Roger Nabani lady, Dotini, the layers is shown the Zambala. Chige gelang kita tini to kamre lo sing on the shuksham tongu yures jigda tene check date na jo niba den ro cha do do ta so so ngo shen gore se jo ta rang shen gore so so kaim ha ko gore se jo ro ta den ro ji na chidang ta nga zon nang ju ni scientist thing sapon ro ji injir de yembe ne ya ta nga zon ro liu tangbo wan ro ji sam tang sha ina ta nga zo thoma ta ka so ji ni chuma ro ji sam tang sha na ta ji rang ha ko che bala the Tamlan logic, can I
have two questions for the Kimbula. And first one is that when you say that normally whatever negative things happen to us, we tend to blame it on this what we call poor karma. So, and when we talk about the karma and blaming our consequences we face on karma has two ways to look at it. Sometimes when you have this concept of karma, it becomes kind of an encouragement for us. You take whatever the situation you're facing because you think that is a part of my karmic actions. Then from another angle, you said another angle, we end up almost like carelessness, or to some extent with no kind of feeling, oh, it's because of karma, so this is the nature, or this is the way it is. So, and also then when we talk about knowing yourself or the changing from within yourself, so when you talk about knowing yourself, maybe there are like very deep ways to explain this from the Buddhist point of view. But as a common person, when you talk about knowing yourself, where we should start and what is the easiest method for a common person to understand yourself?
I really didn't expect to get much of a question from so many of the monastics anyway. Because, I'm sure they know more, but that could be informative for some of the young minds here that I see. When I said lay, which is karma or the action, when I talk about that, I often would like to refer to Newton's third law. What would that be? What's Newton's third law? Didn't hear a word, but I'll assume that I heard it. To every action, there's opposite and equal reaction. And I love working with scientists because of the very fact these things exist. So when we say karma, if you want to blame karma and say, it's my karma, I'll just live with it. It's a choice that you're making, a conscious choice. But at the same time, if you just say, it's an action, karma simply means action. It's not there to drag you to the low, to something bad necessarily. So we can base upon that, and probably we can also say, hey, how about creating a positive action, so that I can get a positive reaction. So in which way you have a choice that you can make to better yourself, and you do have a choice to sort of, dwindle down the path of where you want to be or don't want to be at that point. So it's absolutely your choice, right? When it comes to transforming yourself, I don't know if I have a technique or a method for that. But again, for the monastics, I'm sure that we probably even dream of it, saying that, it's once that we have to change from within means we do need to genuinely feel of what we want others to be, You become what you want others to be. I think. Then only you can express yourself genuinely so that your impact is felt to your family, to your society, to the country, and then globally at that point. Other than that, can I redirect the question and say, how would you want to start? Ruala. Tanda delishu that lady zangen kwazone so lal roa. Tanda di Sir Isaac Newton giachi action saying the polita which pa you in a digat shoot chair you in a digat shoot chair to legal $6. The lesson at the end of some not on the gala Karsegro that Sosogi Dachi ladies and then Jajana, then Sosogi ladies and Dachi dinner young action the Zangach Zogo will say that's also Damhang only Damhacha the Yoromato, Injiminji ladies in Madro, and Sam Chicago, Siomaro, Digi Chiche. Then that Juracha was sitting on the Pardo the Kande Gugu, the Sosogi Dambo Sosoli at Jurachanas. This year on the Gala, that Dua the part of Shusoina. Checking on Ena, Jura the Kandetu Wudus, Chiri Kugergina. Kandesina Jura Tebe go to Jenakasare said Achila.
All that's a lot. Chick draw the young just so in the Samala. I'm going to send it to Comas and the party. Don't enjoy Samala.
Yeah, so basically I asked that question because I don't know the answer. So when you throw back that question to me, so I don't have an answer.
Lenji ungi resene shama shawache ane lel khaya o machi wan chine ane chonda yenda ji dewa ine ya punji ndu lai di tandin chwa jin do anda chwa sin tandi to she ndu di za ane gela tanda churul chwa je de kar so ina ane lenji ungi rese wa ina shu ji ne la ane mutel phegi yeres ane sela ane senzo lo dingo kan chawa ta ane 다 수술 등어 몸부신 책으로 안디 내가서 나 등어 대시라 미시라 돈을 제 말에 그 렌즈 옮기리세 와이나 될 백은도스 얘는 렌즈 옮기리세네 샤샤와이나 야고 레로 차는데 ene 디토라니 가르스나 가르사다 등어 세지지 탈로 될지 그거 여러 아니 디슈 맞제 왔지 ene 정도 뉴스네 정도 될라고 아니 당에 sambal을 수동안조 아니 샤와 가르치와 있나요 강에 가르쳐와 있나 리도 센지 투네 강에 제여와 아니 리도 센지 투네 강에 제와 있자 아니 강에 대 아니 렌지 웅기 제세와데 저와자 마임바 아니 레데 간에 쉬운긴도스 아니 레데 간에 쉬운긴도스 디에 저 가르 그자그건도스 아니 대매와데 간에 시에그건도스 아니 디야 절이야 지자네 아니 땡구제지 가르선다 리파시야 만데 수수 솔루토네라 안테야 고치치네야 고이사레 제근데
So when we talk about blaming our negative circumstances or the problems to the karma, from my point of view, sometimes it has a beneficial effect because normally when you say that, I have this bad situation because it is because of my karma. So from that point of view, from that situation, there's kind of an acceptance of your situation, and because of that, you don't contemplate on that negative thing for a long period of time because you let it go, thinking that, this comes to me because I, to some extent, deserve this because I have committed the cause. And then but you don't, and then we also say that you should not completely ignore the situation or the situation, otherwise it will lead to laziness. And you have to, it's important to some extent to think about what could be the cause of these actions, and also to some extent what is the nature of the actions. And if there's the one particular cause, then what could be the possibilities, possible ways to eliminate the causes. And that kind of contemplation and kind of analytical experiments could be done?
Thank you. Thank you. Action and reaction, Lejide, is a very interesting topic. We can go on for this. We can talk a lot about it, and we still feel it as we're talking, right? The action and reaction. For having born or for having been who we are right now, do we have a choice? No, we don't. We're born human. We can't make ourselves into something else. But then, to be able to do or want to be who we want to be, years down the line, we have that authority. We have that authority. Hence, we can better ourselves. Hence, we can transform ourselves for a better, to a better figure, if you want to say that. But if you choose to, then the lay or the bad lay or the laying yamba takes over. And then it generates, it multiplies. Lay multiplies fast, be it negative or positive. So up until now, that we have what has happened or has come to pass, we cannot change, but the future is bright. If only we contemplate and think positive. Thank you.